Hi, everyone. I am here today with Sky Yeager, who's a presenter at this summer's Fairy and Human Relations Congress in Salem, or near Salem, July 20th through 24th. And Sky has been working with shamanism and energy medicine for 16 years. And how did you get into that, Sky? Because normally there's calling, isn't there?
There's at least one or five. Yeah. I feel like I've always been called by the world of nature spirits for as long as I can remember. My father was a botanist and a naturalist at the county park in upstate New York, where I grew up as a kid. And so we used to spend so much time outside hiking and camping, and he was always pointing out plants and trees and animals and birds to all of our attention. And so I spent so much time outside, and I loved to connect with trees. And I remember making the little twig and leaf houses for the fairies and just leaving them there in the woods. And then I remember when I was 5, I told my grandmother about a little man with a flute that lived in her big giant Monstera plant in her living room. And she thought I dreamed it because I was supposed to be taking a nap there. But I think the fairies loved my grandmother because she had a light heart and she giggled a lot. And then, you get older and you forget all about those things. But then when I was 17, I read the Carlos Castaneda books about his time with the Yaqui shaman Don Juan. And his stories felt completely reasonable to me. And on a subconscious level, I knew all this was possible. And I knew I wanted to be a shaman. But consciously, since I was not part of any traditional culture, it was not something I ever thought could happen. And that was in the 80s when non-traditional core shamanism was just getting started. And I didn't know anything about it then. So in my 20s, I developed a Wiccan practice because it was nature-based and focused on the divine feminine, which really resonated with me. But I was just dabbling on my own, reading all the books. But then when I was 35, I went through what in shamanic perspective is called a little death. And I found myself suddenly divorced, a single mom with an 18-month-old baby. And the little death was the passing away of everything I thought I was, and I thought I knew. But it allowed me to start stepping onto the path of becoming and remembering who I really am. And when that happened, I remember being in such a state of shock and just not knowing anything. It's like everything was upside down and didn't make any sense. And I was living in a very rural area in southern Arizona at the time. And I would put my daughter in her stroller with the big tires, and we would go down the rocky dirt driveway to the river by our house. And one day, this song came to me as I was bumping down the driveway. And it was very short and very simple with the oddest words. And it played in my head all throughout the walk. And I just had this knowing that it was a power song. But I didn't know anything more. I never forgot it. But it was right then that spirit started giving me those gifts and those messages that I was ready for. And so a few years after that, getting grounded and back on my feet again, I met my first teacher, who was a skilled energy medicine practitioner in Barbara Brennan's school methods. So I learned all the basics. Before then, I didn't even know what a chakra was or anything. So it was a good foundation for me. And then when my next teacher came along a couple years later, she taught me core shamanism. And then I had another shamanic teacher who was from the Peruvian tradition. And I took a couple classes with Sandra Ingerman. And then I also learned Reiki. So shamanic journey taught me how to reconnect with the nature spirits and the elementals. And, it wasn't an easy path. because there was a lot of self-doubt and inner work and initiations. And it went through about 10 years. But I found that connecting to the ancestral lineage really made my practice personal and meaningful. And no one else in my family talked about that. We had Scottish, Irish, and German ancestry. And so I realized that the Wiccan and Druid traditions were in my blood. So when I started being able to get messages from the trees again, and the flowers and devas and fairies, I connected more with the spirits of the land, and I found that focus that integrates what I'm learning from my Druid teachers. And I found that I have this knack for networking and connecting people and groups together with nature spirits and other elementals, and just kind of healing things on that level and connecting our divine lights all together.
Wow, that's great. So that feels like it's in alignment with the mission of the Fairy Congress too. And you've been, what, 2 years now to the Fairy Congress in Salem?
Yeah.
And so how was that coming into this circle?
It was really, truly amazing. I moved from Arizona to Oregon 8 years ago. And when I first got here and got on, Facebook and everything, I saw this little ad on Facebook for Fairy and Human Relations Congress. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to know more about that. But at the time, my daughter was still in high school, and there was a very high maintenance mom thing going on there with her. And I thought, oh, I can't make it up there to Washington. But just to know that existed just did my heart a world of good. And then I reconnected again on Facebook. So that marketing is working.
Right.
And I saw that it was going to be in Salem a couple of years ago. And it's like, oh my gosh, I couldn't come to them right away. So they brought it to me. And I went, and I didn't know what to expect at all. And I met my tribe. I met family. It's like everybody I met, I could talk to about anything. And they could talk to me about anything. And I made so many wonderful friends. And I just couldn't wait for the next year to come back. And it was even deeper the second time around. I truly feel like once you're in the Fairy Congress space, in that beautiful land, you're entering in that container, and it envelops you. And from then on, everything you do is heart-led and spirit-informed. And the nature spirits and the fairies are all around you, and amazing things happen. I just think finding that was one of the best things ever.
Yeah, it is. It's a pretty amazing field, energy field that gets created at Fairy Congress. And I think, yeah, now that we've been doing it 23 years, I love to hear, yes, it's quite tangible. And it's almost like the amazing becomes commonplace or something. It's like, oh yeah, of course that happened because we're at the Fairy Congress.
Yeah,
it works here.
Yeah. And so I know, some people might have reservations about camping and kind of immersing themselves in it. But I think that if there's any way that people can do that, it really gives it such a deeper experience and a deeper meaning.
It does. To be able to sleep, I think, in the field, it opens up those dream portals and, yeah, allows another layer of connection, I feel, in the dream time, whether you remember your dreams or not.
Mm-hmm.
There's stuff happening. And so what are you teaching? We're so happy that you're stepping up.
I'm so excited about this. I woke up one morning a few months ago and I wrote down the whole class. And I think the fairy folk downloaded it to me in dream time. So this will be the first time teaching it. And as I was writing it down, I'm like, oh, this is for Fairy Congress.
Right.
So this class is going to be about divining with nature and nature spirits. And it's going to be an experiential workshop about receiving omens and messages. Because we're always being informed by all kinds of spirits all the time, our higher selves, our guides, angels, helping ancestors, all kinds of nature beings on top of that. But we're usually so busy with our lives that we don't really notice those messages. So we're going to learn simple steps to get purposeful, engage with spirit, to receive the omens and messages about a specific question or issue that we want guidance about. And so the first part of the workshop, we're going to talk about how we receive messages and how spirit might present them. And then we'll craft our question and go on a divination walk and record everything that we receive. And then we'll come back and kind of sort and download those experiences. So in this workshop, we're going to put aside all of our other tools like pendulums and muscle testing. And we're just going to use our felt sense, intuition, and clairs. And this will help us stay in the flow of a light trance state. And it'll also help us learn to trust what we feel as real. And as we do this, we're fostering a deeper relationship with our helping spirits and with the nature spirits. And we'll let them know the best way to get their messages across to us. By feeling, by visual, by hearing, or just that knowing that's in your bones. And we'll talk about what makes a good question for divination.
That's important.
Yeah, and then we'll form our question and we'll state that intent to receive the answers and information. And then embodied in our felt sense, we walk. And we are open in a humble and gracious way. And as soon as we take that first step, we start receiving information. Everything that seems relevant is. And so we'll just note it. When I do this, I usually just record it on my phone recorder. And then I can put it together later and it comes out to the answer. So the learning outcomes for the workshop is that people will learn a process that works for them for divining and receiving omens and messages. And people will not only receive information from the process, but they will feel and know their connection to spirit. And that helps them build trust in that connection.
Yeah.
And people will get in the habit of paying attention. And I think the biggest takeaway is that anyone can do this divination practice anywhere, anytime. There's no special training required, and there's no tools that you need. A big part of this is just realizing that we are worthy of friendly communication and guidance and support of all kinds from our guides and teachers and nature spirits like the fairies, the she, the elementals, and so many others. So we may think, how can that dew sparkle be just for me? Well, be assured that it is. It's no coincidence. It's no wishful delusion. It's a sparkly fairy on a tree branch reaching out with a message.
That's lovely. That I find reassurance in that already. Like some of those signs, especially the sparkle on water. I've had that a couple of times. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. It's like, was that really for me? And, yeah.
Yeah.
And I also want to, reiterate that working with building your trust muscle. I feel like that's another important thing that happens at Fairy Congress, because it is, the more you trust, the easier it is. It's like a positive feedback loop. Mm-hmm. The more you can receive, the more you trust, and the more, you trust, the more you can receive. And I think, so it's almost like going to Fairy Congress is going to the gym for our trust muscle. We build it up and strengthen it. And then when we go off into our lives, we have that memory, muscle memory to rely on.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's a big way that Fairy Congress can change your life after you go.
yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I'm really excited about doing your workshop now. So for everyone to register, you can go to fairycongress.com. It's FAIRY congress.com. And we have extended our early bird deadline to May 25th. If you're watching this before then, there's an extra discount. It just helps us to get people to sign up early to manage our food orders, etc. So we hope you can join us. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lindsay.